Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Pinball Arcade. So last time we played Flight 2000, next we're playing Xenon, which is the first kind of made up name, or at least made up sounding name of a table that we've seen so far. This is still 1980, we've got quite a long list of just 1980 tables. Xenon, of course, is I believe, inert gas on the elemental um, periodic chart of elemental tables. Xenon is used to make certain halogen style light light bulbs. I believe, at least it would have been maybe at this time. So I wouldn't be surprised if the developer of this table had heard of xenon bulbs and decided to use that as its title.
Welcome to Xenon.
Hmm. Sounds like it is the first female voiced table we've seen too. Xenon 1979 is what they're labeling it as, which is weird. Is it trademarked? Yeah. I talked about in the last recording how trademarking names probably wouldn't really work here. Although they might be misspelling Xenon, so they may have a small argument for trademarks. Inherently, trademarks in 2021 have stopped making any sense. Copyright has stopped making any sense. Copyright barely made any sense even when it was first instituted. Um, so I feel like a trademark like this is pretty indefensible. It's probably abandoned more than likely. Weird sound effect. Xenon is a classic fantasy themed table designed by Greg Kimick, K-M-I-E-C. I feel like we've heard his name before. The game features the industry's first female voice provided by electronic music composer Suzanne Ciani. Don't recognize that name. Her alluring Xenon girl character gives instructions during gameplay and draws players to the table during attract mode. The playfield features a Xenon transporter tube that leads to an exit chamber for high score and special. This was the first solid state table to feature multi-ball. 11,000 units of this table were produced, so a very high number. And I could certainly see why. Um, it seems like with a table like this, that is a declaration of pinball stopping from being a boys' club uh, type product designed with only boys being depicted or men being depicted, and girls being only there for eye candy, and instead it has shifted to straight up girls being the protagonist and being the eye candy. Small steps in perhaps the right direction or perhaps the wrong direction. You take your pick. Um, and you can see Xenon seems to be fairly non-humanoid, and Pinbot and Bride of Pinbot are kind of in that same category too, where when they are depicting females, they often depict robots. That's probably a censorship reason, I would imagine, more than anything. So let's see what the flyer looks like. Scale up. Yeah, you have a interesting artwork. Definitely a character that didn't get copied much. And yeah, if somebody had drawn a character that looked like this today, I would think it would be a brand new character design. And uh, then single line of text here: transport your earnings to a new dimension. And then you have what looks like a space lady in a leotard, but oddly her legs are completely cut off. So I don't know if there was a printing error there or what. Or it's just all in shadow because you can barely even make out the legs of the pool table. Also, once again, selling on sex, not selling on the table. You can barely even see the table in that flyer. So let's look at the actual table. Let's see. It feels like even the edges of some of these tables change. I did have a a thought, and this might be the case, that the tables that don't have pro modes may be running a version 1 of the engine, and that might also explain why some of the tables that don't have pro modes have had some hitching, whereas pro mode may have been added in a version 2 or a version 3. I'm just estimating that might have happened. And that's why the camera can be moved around. There clearly needs to be another version where you could zoom out with the camera. So we've got a robot with a brain in a jar. We've got a long-haired lady with fingerless gloves showing her buttocks in a tight pants, high heel, and basically a thong over the leotard or tight pants. You have another robot brain in a jar. And so is she transporting herself through a tube, or is she flying a spaceship? I'm not sure. You spell xenon twice. There's a score multiplier 2 times 2 times 4, no times 5 or times 3. Then there's 3 light ups. There's an in lane and an out lane, and compared to the last table where they had art over the divider between the in lane and out lane, it looks so much cleaner to just have thin wires and let the field art on the table be seen through. Then we have Xenon, who has several X's going up towards a bumper. Is that all that is? Yeah. Just a center lane bumper that will almost certainly bounce it right back. We've lost our central peg like the last table had. There's a rounder part to the slingshot that's being kind of emphasized, which that's fine. That just kind of makes the slingshots sling the ball a little bit up towards the top of the field instead of more to the sides. And that's a better angle, and taking up some of the in lane and taking up some of the space. It's not terrible. If anything, the lower playfield does have a lot of space in almost every table where you can kind of waste some space. There's what looks like a exit on this side. So you have to, through this tube, through this ramp, get to that point. So here you have a guy with a tight butt and a thong on too. So equal opportunity objectification here. Gotta love that. They're holding hands and flying with what looks like jetpacks. And so they fly up the tube. And so this is the first ramp / tube that we've seen. And then there's lights here that actually look like they're fairly small technology for 1980. And then the tube just drops off down here into the exit chamber, and then it spins a wheel for reward. Here you have a male and female Xenon like character. So I wonder if this is maybe a case where the narrative is that you have the blonde guy and blonde / maybe brunette girl going up the tube, getting transported to a different dimension and getting transformed into Xenon creatures on the other side, just through the effects of space travel. You have another brain in the jar. You have up in line with these 2 parallel bumpers a power tower that goes all the way to the top, and then you have a very oddly out of line 3 bumpers. Then you have here a Xenon brains, and then more Xenon-like characters. The artist here clearly very interested in drawing very curvaceous, very tight outfits on each of the characters, emphasizing the body of each of the characters. So kind of selling on sex, definitely. There's definitely an argument to be made when you see fashion where the clothes are just so skin tight and they're magically sticking to people that they might as well be naked, because this is even more lewd. And that is something in animation that you cannot actually have occur in the real world usually. Wow, there's a lot of lights around this. Very flashy. They definitely were all about getting your attention here. Because yeah, unless you were going to magic tape, if you were going to just use double-sided sticky tape to glue on parts of clothing, it's not going to always hang on to like the underside of butt cheeks. You would have to be vacuum sealed into the clothing for it to really work that way. All right, well, there are standard goals, and let's hop into the game. Let's see. Score 50,000 point exit chamber value. I don't know how to increase that. Advance the Xenon bonus to 20,000 points. Activate multi-ball. I am not 100% sure where the ball locks would be, even. Earn an extra ball drop down target and score 500,000 plus points. Alright, so scoring the extra I basically need to follow the instructions here on this. The exit chamber value is indicated by these lamps. It starts at 5,000 points. Each time the tube is shot, it scores the exit value and advances by 10,000. So you're just gonna have to shoot that a lot. It can get up to 90,000. At that point, motor special is lit. Once it's lit, shooting the tube again scores 90,000 points and collects the motor special with 50,000 points in 1 credit. Each time the motor special is collected, it turns off. It relights the next time the tube is shot. So apparently you can get quite a bit of stuff there. When your ball drains, you score the Xenon bonus. The bonus starts at 2,000 each time the Xenon lamp is lit. It adds 2,000 to the bonus. It's at the start of each ball. The stand-up target is lit. Shooting the lit stand-up target lights a Xenon lamp. Once the lit stand-up target is hit, it lights the second stand-up target. Shooting these targets lights another Xenon lamp. Then the lights this lamp at the drop targets. Knocking down any of the drop targets lights another Xenon lamp. Once a Xenon lamp is lit from drop targets, the first stand-up target relights. So you have to go in a cycle, hitting the first, then the second, then the drop targets. How do you activate multi-ball? Each time a ball lands in the saucer, it also lights one of 3 X symbol lamps. Lighting all 3 X symbol lamps lights capture when lit. Lit X lamps remain lit from ball to ball, except for when the capture lit is lit. Once capture is lit, shooting the tube locks a ball for multi-ball. Once the ball is locked, lighting all 3 X things. So this might be a 2-ball multi-ball instead of a 3-ball multi-ball. Multi-ball is a 2-ball mode. Once it is activated, the spinner lights for 1,000 points. The spinner normally scores 10 points per spin. Spinner remains lit for 1,000 points for the rest of the current ball. Lighting all 3 X symbols during multi-ball lights a special left, out lane, and right out lane. Draining a ball down the out lane collects a special worth 50,000 points and 1 credit. Yeah, I kind of hate it when tables give you rewards for losing, basically. It's kind of not terrible, but it sucks. Drop target awards. There's rollover buttons at the top also that seem to double as the drop target rewards. Which that might work to have redundancy. for players. We definitely have hit a level where the tables are crazy enough that I'm actually having to look at the instructions. Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know. I didn't even get far enough to get the instructions on the setup there. And see, what I want to set here is the sound menu. And see, I had the menu music turned down because it's just the same song, and it's literally just an excerpt of Pinball Wizard. But table music should be playing once we get to tables that have table music.
Enter Xenon.
I also wouldn't be surprised if the first couple of tables that we run into that do have table music pretty much do it in such a way that you are not going to hear the music until you start playing. Because yeah, this is playing music basically. Or at least close enough to music. I imagine at a certain point we will start to have attract modes that are just playing music non-stop. Like something like an Aerosmith licensed pinball table almost certainly would be playing some famous Aerosmith song in the background in attract mode. So I need to get really good at the tube shots, which means you need a decent amount of power. You're gonna need a nice shot. Wow. That was a pretty terrible game, and already I'm on the high score leaderboard.
Enter Xenon.
Now, it might be a case that a lot of pinball tables make the lowest score very easy to get. That way, somebody local can put their initials into the table when the power resets on them. And a lot of arcades would not have the decency or frankly the budget to leave their machines on anyway, so they were resetting them every night, and that would reset the scores for anything from the 80s. There wouldn't have been any kind of non-volatile memory, as it were. So as soon as the power goes out, the default settings would have all reset. You can kind of tell that that's the case because of a presence of dip switches. You wouldn't use dip switches if there was some memory where you could just save the settings to it. Even if it was a very old-fashioned, like, erasable programmable ROM called an EEPROM. So it's just gonna swap the balls out every time. Until we can decide to lock the multi-ball. There is a certain ominousness of the sound effects there. Never actually even tried to spell anything. It's not worth it to even figure out how the flippers work.
Enter Xenon.
Hmm. Feels like a full power shot from the flip plunger gets you in the sinker, and that's pretty much the only skill shot you're going for. Although it seems to be fairly random. Notice how this ramp is positioned in a way where you can get a kind of back shot with the right side, which that's appreciated by me, certainly, that you have at least a chance to. Far too many sound effects playing. But yeah, I definitely like to have at least a somewhat decent chance that you might land the ball where it needs to go. Particularly since this is very focused on using the tube. That is the main gimmick here. The cycling between the two stand-up targets is a little too difficult to try and pull that off. And it kind of seems like you don't need to do it. So, which of the standard goals are we still trying to do? Extra ball through the drop-down targets and activating multi-ball. Which is crazy because I could have sworn we had already activated multi-ball. And take note that the game just glitched kind of there and highlighted something I had done in the previous game and brought up a prompt that's inaccurate for the standard goals. If it isn't the case that they transformed into Xenon, it's pretty much a case that they teleported themselves to a whole different alien world. Which that as an idea also makes sense. It probably makes more sense with that line of welcome to Xenon. That's a loud sound effect. I have some uncertainty here as to whether the blinking drop target is special. I think it is. I think you have a timed response to hit the blinking drop target. And that upper playfield, that upper lane, feels like a place where you are specifically kind of encouraged to nudge the ball upward as it's draining to get to that drop target. I'm not, again, particularly good at nudging, so we just got the drop down target extra ball. This really is boiling down to just have a couple of good games. do you do to activate the multi-ball? Like, I've locked the balls. I just got a free game. Alright, that was multi-ball. Was it not? Is there not a 3-ball multi-ball? I don't think there is. Very loud, the sound effects here. Going heavy rock too. It's not a full shot plunger shot though. That's the best. I've won multiple free games here. So we kind of can see how this is a table that's a little too generous. It definitely feels like it's it's designed for people in the 1980s, before people had a lot of experience with pinball and could win a whole bunch of free games. And I feel like either I did activate multi-ball and get the reward and just missed it, or the game is glitched a little bit and it's never going to reward me for getting multi-ball. Like another free game. I don't know if it was Pinball FX2 or Pinball Arcade where you actually had credits. I feel like at a certain point there was one Pinball Arcade type game I played where you actually did have credits, and you kind of would have to struggle. Yeah, what was different about that multi-ball that one counted and the other ones didn't? See. And that kind of sucks when you accomplish something in any game and you just don't know why you accomplished that thing. And pinball is particularly in a dangerous position with that, where you can potentially score 1,000,000 points and realize you don't even know why you did score 1,000,000 points, and realize that you're being manipulated with just big fancy numbers. Theoretically now I should be working towards the wizard goals, whatever those are. And we'll see what that is. We're almost to 2 million. In a funny way, I kind of have to remove some score if I were to give a number score to a pinball table like this, for the fact that it is just too easy. Like, I should not be having this well of a game this early on in playing the table. That there's really not a lot of skill shots in this table in the first place. definitely a table where it's just all about keeping the ball in play, and you will eventually succeed. I'm on ball 2, moving to ball 3, 2.4 million. So unless there's a wizard goal to get like 4 million points, I imagine if I am accomplishing the wizard goals, that they're going to be fairly prolonged tricks that require doing multiple things. Another free game. Will we go over 3 million? Not quite. But I think I got, man, what's that? 47 credits? Do I literally have 70 credits for this table? That would be insane. And wizard goals. What are our wizard goals? Earn the Xenon bonus special, earn an outline special, earn a Moda special, earn 5 credits, and earn 232,000 point Xenon bonus.
Enter Xenon.
They may have set it up so that you can't get the wizard's goals in the same game that you get the standard goals. Yeah, I did earn like 70 credits, I think. Or maybe I was wrong about 70, but I earned at least a dozen. And the real question is, from a fresh game, how quickly can you earn a new credit? Like, how easy is it to potentially ensure another free game? It's clearly not that hard, because I immediately got a multi-ball. It actually might be fairly hard to get the Moto special simply because of multi-ball being so easy to unlock. You might have to try fairly hard to not end up lighting the ball lock. We'll also want to keep an eye out to see if you get a free game just at like 1,000,000 points or 500,000 points, or if there's something more to it. There are some pinball tables out there that are straight up just replay at 500,000, at replay at 1,000,000, instead of doing specific actions. This definitely is an odd table for the 80s, because it feels like a table designed just to keep people's attention and keep people playing. In a time where you would have probably not really wanted that as an arcade owner. Well, locked. It's a little difficult to remember that there are rollover targets in the top there, because they kind of just feel like they're lights that are just flashing. because they cycle from left to right, there's not a great chance that you could bounce the ball in an arc back and forth to roll over those lights multiple times, or a lot of multiple times. Not doing the best on that game, so maybe my beginner's luck ran out. I suppose if Pinball Arcade was just not trying to have a minimal number of achievements, you could easily have goals where it was just like hit everything on the table at least once, so that you know you've done it at least once, and then that's a percentage goal perhaps to an achievement. Or maybe you don't make it where you have to hit everything at least once, hit 90% of the targets on the table. Seems much more reasonable. Almost anybody could pull that off with enough determination. Particularly if you're being specific about just hitting targets, not hitting them when they're lit or hitting them in a specific mode or sequence. Or you could have gone a little bit lazier and just said score high score, and that was the one achievement for each table. Of course, Pinball Arcade would have been a game that would have come out in some form or factor at the height of Xbox 360 achievements being a big thing. Now they're kind of blasé and uninteresting, I guess, to people close to my age. Maybe they're still interesting to little kids, but then Nintendo really doesn't have achievements. I don't think they have any achievement system on the Switch at all. And there definitely is an argument that everything should be just done based on the artistic creation of the game creators. Now that the concept of achievements has been introduced and people know what they are and know that they exist, it can be up to the creator whether they want to bother to put that in their game or not, and how they want to reward players for doing certain things. Unfortunately, instead of rewarding people for playing their games, particularly in single player content, they've decided to try and reward people for playing in multiplayer and doing microtransactions and games as services. If anything, there is an argument that the rise of achievements was a predecessor, a ill omen to games as services. Of course, there's a slight difference between a microtransaction grindy game that doesn't really want you to ever achieve anything but wants to keep you addicted in playing, and achievements which really do want to motivate you to actually keep playing and succeeding. I have a shoot again light, so I'm still on ball 1. Every time you hit a bumper, though, it sounds like they're just saying "ow." So, but you don't really see anything here that implies that the humans and Xenon are ever even fighting. If anything, this feels like this is you just met with an alien race and you're having an adventure. not a conflict. And this once again highlights where the sci-fi fad had gotten really big in the 80s. It's kind of weird to call sci-fi a fad, but it's still popular to this day somewhat. But it was a big deal as we approach like Star Wars coming out and Star Trek and several other things, Battlestar Galactica. And I imagine there's several books that came out around the 80s too that were sci-fi-ish. So that's the first credit I've earned. So that kind of does highlight that until you get to later parts in the game, you won't start winning credits. But if you can get to that later part in the game, there's gold in the hills, as it were. There's lots of opportunity to win free games. See, another game. I got one of the specials. Now we're on the ball too. This is a table that kind of highlights the fact that spinners really should give you maybe 10 points or 100 points by default. You run a risk of spinners becoming very high scores, higher scores than you expected them to, if you're not careful. And most spinners also scored using magnetic diodes under the table. So one side of the spinner would be one edge of the spinner would be magnetic, and a diode under the table would read when the spinner got close and when it got far away. I imagine there's a couple other ways you could have accomplished that. I don't even know if there's a wizard's goal to get higher scores. I feel like I've won 3 games, and the desire was to win 5. So, how many wizard goals did we accomplish? 1. So, earning 5 credits in the game seems very doable. Earning 232,000 points Xenon bonus seems doable. Outlane special is kind of going to be random. It'd just be a matter of time. Earning Moda special would just be a matter of time too.
Enter Xenon.
This is really not a terrible table, even though it is suffering from perhaps a lack of confidence and selling itself on sex a little bit. This is very different from the previous table I played, with lots of humanoid people to relate to on it, even though there's a lot of space theming also. But yeah, I wouldn't put this in top tier, but this is a top B tier table, and I could easily see myself coming back and playing this, which puts me in a weird position. Do I want to favorite this table and potentially come back and try and play it some more? I think the answer is probably yes. Of course, I'd have to find a ridiculous amount of free time to come back and play all these tables, and I imagine I'll just never really have that. Yeah. Yeah, I just don't know when I would ever have the free time to get the wizard goals of even my favorite tables, let alone at that point potentially think about playing some of the lesser liked tables to get the wizard goals done on them. So as achievements, they're kind of failing in their main reason for existing, which is to motivate somebody to keep playing. There certainly is a point where in my old age, owning a game is enough. I've in a lot of cases, just knowing I could play it gives me a certain feeling of assuredness. It's an insane way of thinking to potentially buy a product that you may very well never actually enjoy or use, but heck, I have a fire extinguisher in my house for the exact same reason. I have smoke detectors in my house for the same reason. Sometimes just sleeping well at night because you can play pinball tables that might easily go away from being sell again is the best you can get, or good enough. And like any multi-ball game, this really is just all about keeping the balls in play, or keeping them keeping the balls up at the top of the field. This will be our last game. You can see how the bumpers that are parallel vertically will give you a scenario where the ball gets bumped upward in a very linear, perpendicular fashion, which also highlights the fact that the lower bumper would also very often bounce the ball back downward. I think I had lit the outlane special there. I just didn't do it. This Moda special is going to be the most difficult one. It is just going to be all about hitting the left lane over and over and over and over again. Earning 5 credits per game would totally be done. Unfortunately, I just don't think Xenon is going to be the first game where I get all of the expert goals done. Oops. And still, you have to use the mouse if you really want to not automatically move into it. I don't think there's anything else to really say about Xenon. Happy with it? Nice. There is an argument to be made that this table in the 1980s may be a little pushing its luck there. There were some oohs and ahs and ows that started to seem a little bit sexual in nature. The skin tight outfits seems a little sexual in nature. It definitely helped increase the thought of a lot of parents that kids should not be allowed in arcades, and arcades were actually for adults, or they shouldn't be allowed in bars, and bars often had tables. And you kind of have this split where there are definitely some pinball tables that were designed to be in bars where adults only would have been, and then there are some tables that were designed for kids, or at least to be kid friendly. One table that we almost certainly don't have a license for here would have been a Playboy table. Like, I am fairly certain there was a Playboy table that would have existed. I'm not sure if any pinball table really would have been particularly explicit. It would have to be, frankly, a brand new table. Say if you were to make a new one today, where you're shooting a pinball like up the leg of a or up the skirt of a character, like you could do that cartoony, but even now that would be fairly extreme. Whereas it seems to me like the most any license table here would be pushing extreme would be like No Fear, and that's not that extreme. If anything, we might very well find out that Whoa Nelly is about the most extreme one, and that's a brand new table. Or Xenon for the 80s might be the most extreme one, or Elvira might be the most extreme one in that direction. Because it's pinball, you also run into a situation where it's not like there's going to be a violence issue. You could make a pinball table based on Terminator, Mortal Kombat, anything like that, and oddly, there aren't that many pinball spin-offs of actual video games like Mortal Kombat or anything. But yeah, you wouldn't really be able to up the violence to any unacceptable level in pinball. You could perhaps put some blood curdling screams in the sound files, but I don't think anybody would want to listen to that. Anyways, so yeah, pinball, if pinball is going to get in trouble, it's going to get in trouble because it's going to promote gambling, or it's going to promote questionable morals, and it's going to have a hard time even doing that, because certainly pinball had the whole fight of pinball games are bad for you, before video games are bad for you, as a fight happened, before music is bad for you and rap is bad for you, had that fight. It certainly was very cyclical, and we saw every new form of entertainment, from comic books to music to video games to pinball. All of those have been demonized by older generations of politicians, and each one of those fights has pretty much completely failed under the free speech protections of the United States Constitution, for the most part, although each of those also succeeded to promote censorship in some level. Every single scenario ends with a industry volunteering to self-censor themselves, whether it is pinball not going as extreme as it might have, or comic books introducing the Comic Code Authority, or video games introducing the ESRB rating system, or TV introducing the TV rating system, movies introducing the movie rating system. Each one of those are a form of self-censorship, and it is censorship at a certain level when there are certain things in each of those classification groups that are just completely unallowed, or they are allowed but then they put you in an adults only category that won't be sold anywhere. Walmart won't sell adult only video games, they won't sell NC-17 movies, they won't touch anything like that. Books are perhaps the last bastion of not having a dumbed down content warning / I guess now you might just call them straight up trigger warning labels, but even books nowadays will often imply whether they should be in the kids section of the library or adult section, and they might put even warnings and trigger warnings on them self-selecting wise. Anyways, that was a small side rant about censorship. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.